The desert does not announce its danger. It reveals nothing in advance. At first glance, the landscape appears still, an endless spread of sand and stone, flattened under a sky bleached pale by relentless light. The wind moves slowly, dragging heat across the ground rather than cooling it. Every surface absorbs the sun and gives it back without mercy. In this place, survival is not dramatic. It is quiet, and it is unforgiving. As the day advances, the temperature climbs beyond what most living bodies can endure. The air itself becomes heavy, pressing down on lungs and muscles alike. Shade is rare. Water is almost non-existent. Movement carries a cost that cannot be recovered easily. Here, even standing still requires energy. Every creature that inhabits this environment lives under a constant calculation, whether visible or not. The desert does not reward effort. It only punishes excess. Many animals that pass through this terrain do not die during moments of conflict. They do not fall beneath claws or teeth. Instead, they succumb later hours after exertion, when heat overwhelms the body from within. Muscles fail. Organs slow. The desert claims its victims long after the struggle ends, when there is no audience left to witness it. Yet life persists here. Small predators move across this landscape with caution, timing their activity to narrow windows of possibility. Their existence depends not on strength, but on restraint. They are surrounded by prey, yet cannot afford to chase freely. Every pursuit risks pushing the body beyond a threshold from which there is no return. In this environment, hunger alone does not dictate action. The desert rewrites that rule. This is a world where success can be fatal, where winning a chase may cost more energy than the reward can replace, where the difference between survival and death is measured not in skill, but in judgment. Many predators vanish from these regions, unable to adapt to the invisible pressure imposed by heat and distance. Others remain not because they hunt harder, but because they hunt differently. Among the creatures shaped by this environment is a small desert fox species, adapted not only to the scarcity of food, but to the far greater threat of overheating. Its survival is not built on relentless pursuit, but on precision, knowing when movement becomes dangerous, when effort turns lethal, and when restraint is the only path forward. In the desert, life does not belong to the fastest or the strongest. It belongs to those that understand when to stop. Desert foxes belong to a group of small canids that have adapted to some of the hottest and most unforgiving regions on Earth. They inhabit arid plains, semi-desert zones, and open sandy landscapes where temperatures routinely rise beyond levels tolerated by most mammals. Their survival is not the result of dominance, but of specialization, an evolutionary response shaped by heat scarcity and time. Physically, these foxes are built to manage extreme thermal stress. Their most striking feature is their disproportionately large ears. Far from being ornamental, these structures function as efficient heat exchangers, allowing excess body heat to dissipate rapidly into the surrounding air. Blood vessels near the skin's surface release warmth whenever conditions allow, preventing dangerous internal temperature spikes. Their bodies are small and lightweight, minimizing heat retention and reducing the energy required for movement across loose sand. Their fur is pale, blending seamlessly with the desert floor, while reflecting sunlight rather than absorbing it. Their paws are adapted for hot terrain, enabling quick movement without prolonged contact with burning surfaces. Every physical trait serves a single purpose, keeping body temperature within survivable limits. In the desert, anatomy is not about power, it is about balance. Within the ecosystem, desert foxes occupy a mid-level predatory role. They feed primarily on small mammals, reptiles, insects, and ground-dwelling birds. This places them in constant competition with other desert hunters, from birds of prey to snakes and larger carnivores. Unlike apex predators, foxes cannot afford injury or prolonged exertion. Even minor damage or dehydration can quickly become fatal in an environment where recovery resources are limited. Despite their size, desert foxes are highly capable hunters. Their hearing is exceptionally acute, allowing them to detect subtle movements beneath sand or vegetation. They can pinpoint prey through vibrations alone, striking with speed and precision when conditions are favorable. Their bursts of acceleration are efficient and controlled, designed for short pursuits rather than extended chases. On paper, these traits suggest a predator well-equipped for consistent success. But success in the desert is deceptive. Unlike predators in cooler or resource-rich environments, desert foxes face an additional constraint that shapes every hunting decision: heat accumulation. Each second of intense movement raises internal body temperature. Unlike fatigue, this heat cannot be easily expelled once it reaches a critical level. Water loss through panting accelerates dehydration, further limiting endurance. The cost of a hunt is not measured only by calories burned, but by thermal debt, the invisible burden that builds with every step. As a result, desert foxes do not hunt continuously. They operate within narrow windows of opportunity, often during cooler periods, at dawn, dusk, or night. During peak heat, they reduce activity, sheltering in burrows or shaded areas. Their survival depends on the ability to regulate effort, not maximize it. What appears to be caution is in reality necessity. This species does not thrive by chasing every opportunity. It thrives by choosing which opportunities are worth the risk. In the desert, the fox is not merely a hunter. It is a strategist, shaped by an environment where miscalculation can mean death hours later, long after the chase has ended. In the open desert, opportunities rarely arrive without warning. Movement is limited. Cover is scarce. When prey reveals itself, the moment is unmistakable. A slight disturbance in the sand, a flicker of motion against the pale ground. For a desert fox, such signals immediately trigger attention, not urgency but assessment. Small mammals and ground-dwelling reptiles make up a significant portion of the fox's diet. These animals survive by remaining unseen, relying on camouflage and stillness, but nothing in the desert stays hidden forever. Heat forces movement. Hunger forces mistakes. When prey shifts position even briefly, it creates a window that a fox can detect from surprising distances. At the start of a hunt, the fox does not rush forward. It lowers its body closer to the ground, reducing exposure to the sun and conserving energy. Its ears rotate independently, tracking faint sounds beneath the sand. Every step is deliberate. This is not a sprint. It is a controlled approach designed to delay exertion until success becomes likely. When the chase begins, it unfolds quickly. The fox accelerates in short bursts, closing distance with efficient strides. Its lightweight frame allows rapid changes in direction, responding instantly to the prey's attempts to escape. Dust rises briefly beneath its paws, then settles again. At this stage, the balance favors the predator. The prey's movements grow erratic. Its speed drops. The outcome appears predictable. From an external perspective, this hunt should end as most do. The fox has the advantage in speed awareness and positioning. The prey is exposed with limited escape options. In cooler environments, this would be the final phase. A few more seconds of pursuit would be enough to secure the kill. But the desert is not a neutral arena. As the chase continues, subtle changes begin to emerge. The fox's breathing deepens, its mouth opens, slightly increasing airflow to release heat. Each burst of speed generates internal warmth faster than it can be expelled. The sand beneath reflects heat upward, amplifying the thermal load with every step. Muscles generate power, but power creates heat, and heat accumulates silently. The prey senses opportunity and attempts a final escape, pushing its exhausted body towards sparse cover. The fox responds instinctively, accelerating once more. The distance narrows again. Victory appears imminent. To an observer, stopping now would make no sense. Yet this is the point where the desert intervenes. The fox's internal temperature rises toward a critical threshold. Unlike fatigue, this limit cannot be ignored or pushed through safely. Crossing it does not result in immediate collapse. Instead, it triggers a delayed cascade dehydration, disorientation, organ stress that can render the fox helpless hours later. The danger is not visible in the moment. There is no pain to signal retreat, only risk. In this environment, success carries consequences that extend beyond the chase itself. The fox slows slightly, recalculating. Its movements remain controlled, but the intensity diminishes. The prey, sensing the change, gathers what little energy remains and escapes into cover. The distance widens. Within seconds, the opportunity is gone. The hunt ends without contact. This outcome appears at first glance to be a failure, a missed chance, a waste of effort. But nothing about the fox's behavior suggests confusion or error. There is no frantic pursuit, no sudden loss of coordination. The decision to disengage occurs at a precise moment when the cost of continuing outweighs the benefit of capture. In the desert, hunts are not judged by their immediate outcome. They are judged by what happens afterward. A successful kill would require additional effort, restraining prey, delivering a final bite, consuming the meal. All of this extends exposure to heat and accelerates water loss. Even feeding can become dangerous when body temperature remains elevated and shade is limited. Winning too late in the day can mean carrying the consequences into the hottest hours that follow. By ending the chase early, the fox avoids accumulating irreversible thermal debt. It preserves the option to recover, cool down, and attempt another hunt under safer conditions. What appears to be restraint is in fact precision and adjustment calibrated to the desert's hidden rules. This first conflict does not end with blood or victory. It ends with withdrawal. And in this landscape, withdrawal is often the difference between life and death. The most critical moment of the hunt does not arrive with a strike. It arrives with hesitation. As the distance between predator and prey collapses, Osiris the desert fox reaches a point where instinct alone is no longer sufficient. Muscles are primed. Coordination remains intact. From a purely mechanical perspective, the hunt is still viable. One final burst of speed could end it. The prey is exposed, its movements slow and uneven. Everything suggests that the chase should continue. And yet something changes. The fox reduces its pace not abruptly, but deliberately. The rhythm of its movement shifts. Its strides shorten. The intensity drains away, not from exhaustion, but from restraint. This is not the faltering of a weakened animal. It is a controlled disengagement executed before the body forces the decision. The prey notices immediately. Survival instincts sharpen in moments like this. A sudden increase in distance offers an opening that did not exist seconds earlier. The prey pushes forward, escaping into sparse vegetation or uneven terrain where pursuit becomes inefficient. Within moments, the opportunity vanishes completely. The desert returns to stillness. There is no visible sign of failure. No stumble. No collapse. The fox remains upright, alert, and composed. It does not search frantically for another target. It does not attempt to recover the lost ground. Instead, it stops moving altogether, allowing its breathing to slow and its body temperature to stabilize. To an outside observer, this behavior appears illogical. Predators are expected to exploit advantage. Success is assumed to be the ultimate goal. In many ecosystems, abandoning a hunt at this stage would represent a critical mistake, an error in judgment that could mean starvation. But the desert operates by different rules. Here, the cost of persistence is often greater than the cost of restraint. Continuing the chase would require additional exertion at the most dangerous point of the day. The fox would need to maintain high-speed movement, overpower prey, and remain active long enough to consume the meal. Each step compounds thermal stress. Each breath accelerates dehydration. The margin for recovery shrinks rapidly. Stopping early prevents that chain reaction from beginning. The decision is not emotional. There is no visible sign of frustration or confusion. The fox does not display agitation. It simply disengages, conserving what remains of its internal reserves. This moment marks a sharp contrast between environments where predators succeed through aggression and those where survival depends on timing and moderation. In the desert, energy is not recovered easily. A single miscalculated hunt can push the body beyond its capacity to regulate heat. When that happens, the consequences are delayed but severe. An animal may appear functional immediately after a chase, only to succumb hours later when cooling becomes impossible. Shade offers limited relief. Burrows trap heat. Nightfall may come too late. The fox's behavior reflects an awareness of this risk, embedded through generations of selection. Individuals that continued chasing at all costs did not survive long enough to reproduce. Those that disengaged early, despite appearing less successful in the moment, were more likely to endure repeated heat cycles, seasonal droughts, and prolonged scarcity. What looks like hesitation is in fact a threshold. The fox has learned through evolutionary pressure rather than conscious thought that there is a precise point at which success becomes dangerous. Crossing that point does not guarantee immediate death, but it drastically increases the likelihood of it. By stopping before that threshold, the fox preserves future opportunity. This moment defines the desert hunting strategy more clearly than any successful kill. It reveals a predator shaped not by dominance, but by limitation. The fox does not lack the ability to pursue. It lacks the luxury to do so recklessly. The silence that follows the aborted hunt is deceptive. It suggests inactivity, but the fox's survival strategy is still unfolding. By disengaging early, it allows its body to cool. It reduces water loss. It maintains cognitive clarity, avoiding the disorientation that accompanies rising internal temperatures. These factors determine whether the fox will be capable of hunting again, perhaps later the same day, or perhaps days later when conditions improve. In ecosystems where food is abundant, predators can afford repeated failure. Missed opportunities are balanced by future chances. In the desert, opportunities are limited, but survival windows are even narrower. A single overextension can remove an individual from the population entirely. The fox does not attempt to compensate for the lost prey by increasing activity elsewhere. Instead, it retreats towards shade or shelter, minimizing exposure. The environment demands patience. Movement becomes selective rather than constant. Each decision is weighted against the cost of heat accumulation. From a human perspective, the hunt appears unfinished. From the desert's perspective, it ends exactly when it should. This moment when a predator chooses to stop rather than strike represents the core paradox of desert survival. Strength and speed are present, but they are not decisive. Judgment is. Knowing when to disengage is as vital as knowing how to attack. The fox's withdrawal does not mark weakness. It marks adaptation. In this landscape, survival is not defined by how often a predator wins, but by how rarely it loses control. The desert does not reward ambition. It rewards precision. And precision sometimes means letting prey escape, not because the fox cannot continue, but because continuing would be fatal. The hunt does not fail here. It ends on purpose. In the desert, survival is not decided by how much food a predator can obtain, but by how much damage its body can endure while doing so. For desert foxes, the most dangerous moments often occur after a hunt appears to be over. The act of pursuit may end, but its physiological consequences continue to unfold long afterward. Every burst of speed generates heat within muscle tissue. Unlike environments where shade and water are readily available, the desert offers little opportunity to dissipate that heat efficiently. As body temperature rises, the fox must rely on panting to regulate itself. This process accelerates water loss, drawing moisture from an already limited supply. The body enters a state where cooling and dehydration compete against each other, and both carry lethal risk if pushed too far. A successful hunt amplifies this problem. Securing prey requires additional exertion, restraining movement, delivering a final bite, and maintaining control until the struggle ends. Even after the kill, feeding demands continued activity. Chewing, tearing flesh, and remaining exposed while consuming the meal prolongs heat retention. What appears to be a reward becomes a liability when thermal stress remains unresolved. The desert does not kill through immediate violence. It kills through accumulation. Foxes that overextend themselves often appear unharmed in the moments following a hunt. They may move toward shelter, attempt to rest, or seek shade. But internal damage has already begun. Elevated body temperature disrupts organ function, slows reaction time, and impairs coordination. If cooling does not occur rapidly enough, the body enters a spiral that cannot be reversed without significant water intake, something the desert rarely provides. This delayed consequence is what makes desert hunting uniquely dangerous. Death may arrive hours later, without warning, when the animal is no longer exerting itself. Many predators are lost during this silent phase, long after the chase ends, and long after the moment of apparent success. For desert foxes, avoiding this outcome requires an approach that prioritizes recovery as much as capture. Their daily routines reflect this balance. Activity is compressed into narrow time windows when temperatures are lower and heat dissipation is possible. Midday hours are reserved for rest, often in burrows that provide limited but crucial insulation from direct sunlight. These shelters are not refuges from danger, but from exposure. Feeding patterns are similarly conservative. Foxes do not attempt to compensate for missed opportunities by hunting aggressively later in the day. Instead, they maintain a margin of safety, ensuring that each pursuit leaves enough energy and hydration to sustain the body through the hottest periods. This strategy favors consistency over volume. Fewer hunts spaced carefully offer greater long-term survival than frequent success followed by collapse. Reproduction further reinforces this restraint. During breeding seasons, adult foxes must support offspring in an environment where every additional movement increases risk. Nursing females and provisioning adults operate under even stricter energy budgets. Overexertion does not endanger only the individual, but the continuation of the lineage. As a result, hunting decisions during these periods become even more selective. Young foxes that fail to learn these limits rarely survive their first seasons. Individuals that pursue prey relentlessly may succeed in early hunts, but their survival rates drop sharply during prolonged heat waves or droughts. Over time, these patterns shape population dynamics. The desert favors foxes that appear cautious, even inefficient, over those that maximize short-term gains. This is not a matter of intelligence or conscious planning. It is the result of evolutionary filtering. Behaviors that reduce exposure to heat and dehydration persist because individuals exhibiting them survive long enough to reproduce. Those that do not are removed quietly from the system. From a distance, desert foxes may seem inactive for long stretches of time. Their movements are sparse. Their hunts are brief. Their successes are less frequent than those of predators in more forgiving environments. But this apparent scarcity masks a deeper efficiency. Energy is not wasted. Risk is contained. Survival is extended across seasons rather than measured in individual victories. In this ecosystem, abundance is an illusion. What matters is continuity. The desert does not reward ambition. It rewards precision. Foxes that thrive here do so not by dominating their prey, but by respecting the limits imposed by heat and scarcity. Every hunt is evaluated against what the body can safely recover from. Every decision reflects an understanding that winning once at the wrong time can mean never hunting again. This is the hidden cost of survival in arid landscapes. Success is never free. It must be paid for with energy, water, and time. The fox that survives is not the one that wins most often, but the one that avoids paying a price it cannot afford. For desert foxes, the most dangerous opponent is not another predator. It is not competition injury or even hunger. The greatest threat they face is the slow, relentless pressure of heat acting over time. Unlike a visible adversary, this force cannot be confronted directly. It cannot be chased away, intimidated, or outmaneuvered. It simply persists, shaping every movement and every pause. As the sun rises higher, the desert undergoes a subtle but lethal transformation. Surface temperatures climb far beyond the ambient air, turning sand and rock into sources of radiant heat. Each step across the ground transfers warmth into the body. Shade becomes fragmented and temporary. Cooling mechanisms struggle to keep pace. Under these conditions, time itself becomes an enemy. The longer an animal remains active, the greater the danger it accumulates. Desert foxes have evolved in response to this pressure. Their lives are structured around narrow windows when movement is possible without catastrophic cost. Early mornings and late evenings offer brief periods of relative safety when heat dissipates enough to allow controlled activity. Outside these windows, movement becomes hazardous, regardless of hunger or opportunity. This creates a unique form of conflict, one that unfolds not in bursts of action, but across hours. The fox must constantly weigh the benefits of activity against the invisible toll of exposure. Unlike predators in cooler environments, it cannot afford to chase repeatedly or recover through rest alone. Recovery requires cooling, and cooling requires conditions that the desert rarely provides during the day. The challenge intensifies during periods of drought or prolonged heat waves. As temperatures remain elevated for weeks or months, the margin for error shrinks further. Water sources disappear. Prey species become more elusive, reducing opportunities even as the need for food increases. In these conditions, foxes that misjudge their limits are eliminated quickly, not through dramatic confrontation, but through delayed collapse. Physiologically overheating triggers a cascade of failures. Enzymatic processes slow. Muscular coordination degrades. Cognitive function becomes impaired, affecting navigation and awareness. An animal may continue moving while its internal systems are already approaching shutdown. By the time visible symptoms appear, recovery is often impossible without immediate access to water and shade. Desert foxes counter this threat through behavioral adaptation rather than brute endurance. They reduce exposure time, aggressively limiting hunts to situations with the highest probability of quick resolution. They abandon pursuits early, not as a sign of weakness, but as a protective measure against cumulative damage. They retreat before exhaustion forces retreat upon them. This behavior is not uniform across all individuals. Younger foxes, or those with less experience, may push too far, especially during periods of abundance when prey appears plentiful. These individuals often pay the price during extreme conditions when heat overwhelms their capacity to recover. Over generations, such losses shape population traits. Foxes that exhibit restraint are more likely to survive repeated environmental stress and pass their behaviors forward. The desert's selective pressure is subtle but absolute. It does not reward effort. It rewards alignment with environmental limits. In this context, the fox's most critical skill is not speed or strength, but the ability to disengage before damage becomes irreversible. This long-term conflict between activity and survival defines the species' relationship with its environment. Foxes that persist in arid regions do so by treating heat as a primary adversary, shaping their daily rhythms and seasonal behaviors around its presence. During the hottest months, activity levels drop sharply. Burrows become essential tools not for protection from predators, but for thermal regulation. Even then, cooling is partial at best. Seasonal variation further complicates this struggle. During cooler periods, foxes may appear more active, hunting more frequently and expanding their ranges. But these apparent advantages are temporary. When heat returns, only individuals that have conserved energy and avoided injury are capable of enduring the shift. The desert does not reset between seasons. It accumulates consequences. This cumulative pressure explains why desert fox populations remain relatively sparse. The environment cannot support large numbers without catastrophic losses. Each individual occupies a carefully balanced niche, constrained by energy availability, thermal tolerance, and time. Competition is limited not by aggression, but by environmental capacity. The second major conflict faced by desert foxes is therefore not a single event, but a continuous trial. It is a test of moderation played out across days and years. Those that survive are not the ones that take the most risks, but the ones that consistently avoid crossing invisible thresholds. In this sense, desert foxes represent a model of evolutionary compromise. They are capable hunters, but not relentless ones. They possess speed, but use it sparingly. Their success is measured not in kills, but in survival across repeated extremes. The desert enforces this strategy ruthlessly. Individuals that ignore its constraints may succeed briefly, only to disappear when conditions tighten. There are no second chances for those that miscalculate. The environment does not adapt to the fox. The fox must adapt to the environment. Through this ongoing conflict, desert foxes demonstrate a fundamental truth of arid ecosystems. Survival is not about maximizing gain, but minimizing loss. Every action is weighed against its long-term cost. Every decision is filtered through the reality of heat dehydration and recovery time. In the end, the desert does not ask how skilled a predator is. It asks how well that predator understands when to stop. Those that answer correctly endure. Those that do not are removed silently without spectacle or warning. This is the final and most unforgiving challenge of desert life. And it is one that the fox survives, not by fighting harder, but by yielding to limits that cannot be overcome. As the sun begins its slow descent, the desert changes once more. Shadows stretch across the sand, softening the heat that dominated the day. The landscape appears calmer, but nothing about it has become more forgiving. The same forces remain in place, waiting for the next moment of movement, the next calculation, the next mistake. For desert foxes, survival unfolds not as a series of dramatic victories, but as a continuous negotiation with limits. Each day presents opportunities that must be weighed against consequences that are not immediately visible. Hunger presses forward. Heat presses back. Between them lies a narrow path that allows life to continue. The fox does not conquer this environment. It does not overpower it. Instead, it persists by aligning its behavior with the realities of the desert. Movement is restrained. Effort is measured. Success is defined not by capture alone, but by what the body can withstand afterward. In this world, restraint is not a lack of ability, it is a form of adaptation. Across seasons, generations of foxes repeat this pattern. Those that fail to respect the desert's limits vanish quietly, leaving no trace beyond absence. Those that survive do so by maintaining balance, not dominance. Their existence is shaped by an environment that tolerates no excess and forgives no miscalculation. The desert itself remains unchanged. It does not adjust to the needs of its inhabitants. It offers no mercy, only consistency. Heat returns each day. Water remains scarce. Recovery remains uncertain. Life persists only where behavior fits within these boundaries. This is the truth of survival in arid ecosystems. Strength matters, but only within limits. Speed matters, but only when used briefly. Hunger matters, but it does not override the laws imposed by heat and time. The fox that survives is not the one that wins every hunt, but the one that avoids losing everything in a single moment. In allowing prey to escape the desert, fox reveals a deeper principle of life in extreme environments. Survival is not always about taking what is within reach. Sometimes it is about knowing when reaching further would be fatal. As darkness settles and temperatures finally begin to fall, the desert fox emerges again. Not because it failed earlier, but because it endured. The day's restraint becomes the night's opportunity. Life continues not through conquest, but through precision. In the desert, survival does not belong to the relentless. It belongs to those that understand when stopping is the only way forward.